Your stuff, Muni. Apparently, I can't talk today. Okay. All right. Hang on, everybody. 1 second, and we will. Well, I forgot that I left this channel open. So without further ado, here is Muni. Let's see. There we go. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well. So you have had a busy day, it sounds like.
I have just a long day of orientation and things not going the way they're supposed to, as often happens in nursing. But it's okay.
Hmm.
I'm all right. I'm here, so that's all that matters.
And I'm very glad. I feel very honored that you were able to show up and to kind of talk to us a little bit about what you do and kind of go through
Yeah.
some of these questions that you and I have talked about. Um, because I think what you do is very important, and
Oh,
I
thank you.
think that I like the way that you present topics. I like the way that you talk about things in a very down to earth way. Um, and you take some very serious things and you break it down in a way that I think it's relatable to a lot of people. So if you guys haven't
Oh,
listened to her podcast before, there's links that are going to be coming up in chat every few minutes or so. Um, and definitely go. You can find her podcast just about everywhere.
yeah.
Amazon, Spotify, Apple, just about everywhere. Because I think you use Buzzsprout too, right?
I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here.
Yeah.
Same here. I
Yeah.
use
Oh, I
Buzzsprout.
didn't. Cool. Cool. Yeah.
Yep. I think that might have been how I found you. I joined some like
Is it?
site. I think I messaged you one time on one of those
You
like sites.
You did on my website, and I was like, "Oh, who's this?" And then I,
Yeah.
like, looked you up, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." I'd never heard of you before, and then I started watching your stuff from there, so I was like, "Oh, perfect."
But you watched my stuff, so thank you very much
I
for
did,
that.
yeah, I watched a little some. I like what you do, so I
Thanks.
was like, "Let me come on and talk to the people who listen to him," so
Cool. So
yeah.
why don't we get started here? Because I know you have a limited time, but why don't you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about yourself and your podcast, just to give people a little bit idea of who you are.
Yeah. Alright, so my name is Mooney, as, Morph, I guess you go by, I
Yeah.
already
Yep.
told you. I am a nurse in my regular life, but I also have a podcast called Embracing Awkward, which is what he was talking about, which I started a couple months ago. And it's a podcast for people who deal with anxiety disorders, specifically social anxiety, and people who are more introverted and kind of deal with things of that nature. I kind of started it because this is something I've dealt with for a very, very long time, pretty much my whole life. And I feel like it's not something that gets talked about enough. So I decided to start a podcast about it. I don't know. I didn't have any other things that I felt like I could listen to or relate to in this type of format. So I decided, hey, why not? If you can't join them, just start your own. So
Right.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that's really it.
that's great. And I know that
Yeah.
we weren't going to really. I don't want to make a big deal about this, but I think it's also a big deal that you
Hmm.
are a BIPOC podcaster.
Yes.
The same way that I again, I don't make a big deal about me streaming, but I
Hmm.
think it's a big deal that younger people see, oh, here's a dude that's doing something that I like, and he's
Yeah.
having a level of success. Maybe I can
Yeah.
do it too, and I think that's a big deal. So
I 100% agree, and I think that it's important for people of color to see other people of color doing things that they maybe didn't think that they could do, like you
right,
said, at some level of a success, so I agree.
exactly. All
Mhm.
right, so let's get into some of these questions here. So the
Okay,
first one I
let's
have
do
for
it.
you is,
Mhm.
how do you deal with social anxiety when you're putting yourself out there, like you are on podcasts or your YouTube videos, or like I'm doing here on Twitch?
Mhm. Um, well, you're kind of forced to by the nature of what I'm doing. That's honestly one of the reasons why I started it, because I felt like I've always had this kind of aversion to talking in public. And I know this isn't really public, but it is kind of, in a sense, putting myself on camera. I hate taking pictures, hate getting videotaped, and just, like, anything that involves me sharing my opinion to a group of people that I don't know. So the biggest thing has just been kind of, I guess, telling myself that this is, A, gonna be beneficial in the long run. It's gonna be good for me. and then just kind of practicing certain exercises that I've kind of learned along the way of my social anxiety journey, like from different books and things. And yeah, just reminding myself that this is beneficial. This is kind of a way for me to practice it, putting myself out there, and then also, I guess, beating my social anxiety or embracing it in some way because I'm okay with being a little like more awkward or having those moments. Those are things that used to kind of frighten me before and put me off from doing things. But I'm like, that's gonna happen. And I just kind of embrace it. So yeah.
Right. Hence
Mhm.
embracing awkward.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, and so another question I have is, we talk a lot. I do talk about mental health on the
Mhm.
show, every now and then. It's a big
Yeah.
deal in this world. There's a lot of people who stream, who create content,
Yeah.
are below the age of 25, and this generation has one of the highest rates of self-declared mental uh, health issues of
Yeah.
any previous generation. So it's a big deal. That combination of two things here really causes some concern on my behalf, you
Yeah.
know. So, and one of the things that people deal with when they're streaming and when they're creating content is that they're not good enough, that they aren't,
Yeah.
that they can't do this, or they're a fake, the imposter
Yeah.
syndrome. So, is that something that you can kind of explain a little bit to us and give us some tips on like how to face it?
Yeah. I actually talked about this in an earlier episode. I did an interview with somebody by the name of Chloe Grande, and she's kind of also a social anxiety advocate and then eating disorder advocate. And we both talked about how doing what we do, we often feel this sense of imposter syndrome. Because I wouldn't call myself an expert on the topic. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I feel like as someone who has direct experience dealing with the issues I'm talking about, it kind of makes me an expert on the topic. But sometimes it's hard going into a space and telling other people how to deal with it. You kind of get that feeling like, am I really like the right person? There are days where you're talking, you're like, oh man, like I'm talking about it, but all like I don't always feel like I'm 100% there and I'm actually the person who should be speaking on this because I'm like, I'm still dealing with it. I tell myself like I should be past this. I should have beaten it before I start telling people about this, but I feel like that kind of makes me more I feel like that makes me more of a candidate because I'm also dealing with it and therefore you can kind of relate more.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of ways that you can kind of deal with it, but the biggest thing I tell myself is that I'm not alone, and that's kind of what I like to tell myself with any mental health situation, depression, anxiety, social anxiety, anything. Like you're not
Yeah.
alone. There are over 7 million people who deal with social anxiety. Almost 45 to 50% of the population are introverts. Like there are
Mm-hmm.
plenty of us out there, and a lot of times that helps you to kind of feel more less alone and just um, learn how to deal with it in a more manageable way because you know that there are tools out there and there are other people who can kind of help you with that.
Right.
And then also, I mean, obviously there's therapy. That's always helpful. I always recommend therapy for anybody and everyone. I think everyone could benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a lot of times it's maybe in the workplace or maybe for people who are twitching or streaming, feeling like maybe they're not the person or the right candidate. They don't really know why they think they're the best person to speak on this. But I think it's really just despite those feelings, trying to push past it, push past that fear or that those feelings of inadequacy and just keep doing it. And the more you do it, the better and more capable you'll feel because I've gotten so much better at like since my first podcast to my 34th episode, there's been a lot of growth. I may not be like, I don't know, I don't wanna use Joe Rogan just at the level of podcasting that he's at, not his content, but
Right.
just like getting to a place where I'm successful. I feel like there's been growth, even if it's small,
Yeah.
that's kind of it's still helpful.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about that and anyone who's kind of dealing with those types of feelings.
I used to like Joe Rogan until he got crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
happens to a lot of people.
It does. I think fame really does go to people's heads, just whether they want to or not. There really needs to be some person or thing grounding you in your life, or
Yeah.
else that that crap will get to you, and I think that's kind of what's happened to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unfortunate. Hopefully that's never me. If that's ever me, Morph, just give me a call, be like, "Hey, remember when you did your first interview?
Right.
Like, let's go back to that Muni." Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Although as much as I like to say that this would never happen, if Spotify gave me $200 million, I might say some crazy stuff too. You
yeah.
never know.
Yeah, you're right, you're right.
So I do have a question that I don't think I asked you before, or that I had sent you before.
Mhm.
Do you think that we talk a lot about introversion, we talk a lot more
Yeah.
about social anxiety and things like that. Do you think it's getting worse in the last few years? Because I feel like I'm hearing about it more. I don't know if it's just because I'm focused on it more, but it feels like the topic is out there more than it ever used to be.
Yeah, and I 100% agree, and I I've asked myself this question a lot, and I'm like, "Is it that it's getting worse, or is it that people are talking about it more?" And
Mm,
I think it's a mix of both. I think that I wouldn't say it's worse, I would say that because of the way that society is progressing and
yeah.
even because of, like, COVID and the pandemic and the lockdown, and just by nature, us being more technology-based, people are kind of more isolated. They do a lot more things that are computer based. A lot of people work from home now. So it's natural that like going into social situations might be a little more triggering for people and take a little bit more energy to deal with. I know a lot of people who have post pandemic social anxiety. And I think it's a little bit of that, but I do think it's more so just more awareness around it. I think people who had social anxiety in the past were either deemed as introverts or just like
Mm-hmm.
shy, rather than it being seen as an actual mental health issue, which it is. It's treated with therapy and medication, just like any other mental health issue. And I think there's more awareness. I think there's more people talking about it, and I
Yeah.
think we have a better idea of what it is versus, shyness or introversion. There's more differentiation, there's better definitions for social anxiety. So I think that's also what's going on.
Right. And the thing is interesting because it feels like the more people talk about it and open up and be more vulnerable about
Mhm.
issues they're dealing with, there feels like the level of people pushing back against it and saying it's not a real thing is also increasing, which is difficult when you're trying
Yeah,
to deal with it. You know?
right. Yeah. No, I agree, and again, I feel like you're hitting all the points that I've talked about in my previous episodes, but,
Maybe I watched
yeah,
it. Who knows?
yeah, maybe you listened. It sounds like you did your homework, so, yeah, but I feel like that's been a big thing in my life. I feel like the more I've talked about it and kind of expressed it to people, because it's not something that I've always felt comfortable sharing,
Mm-hmm.
because I thought it was something, there's a negative stigma attached to it, especially even to introverts, just being a quieter person by nature. Extroverts are more rewarded. They're more highly regarded in society. So when I started telling people about it or my podcast, I've gotten these like I've gotten mixed reactions. Some people being like, "Oh, that's really cool. Like, I'm glad that you started something to kind of help other people deal with that. I love that." And then I've gotten other reactions where people are like, well, why don't you just talk to people? What's like it's why is that so hard?" Like, or, like someone told me, "You know what the difference between an introvert and an extrovert is? Confidence." And I was like,
Mm.
I'm like, what does that even what?" I was like, I've met plenty of introverts who are confident, so that whole argument is just null and void, but, you
Yeah.
just get all sorts of weird things, and I think it's a lot of times I've talked about this, like, social anxiety and people who are quieter tend to, I think, elicit feelings of rejection in other people because we're not always as upfront and friendly, so I think some people interpret that as us being, like, standoffish or stuck up or something like that or rude, so I think that that is one of the issues that kind of surrounds it, is just that stigma of us being, like, recluses or not wanting to talk to people or hating people, but
Right.
I think it's just a matter of education, like me coming on here and talking to people about it, and
Mm-hmm.
then, um, having a podcast and just explaining to people, like, what it really is. It's not that I don't like you, it's not that I don't wanna be around people, it's just, like, a real fear holding me back. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Um,
Mhm.
here's another question for you. How do you deal with negative self beliefs and the loneliness that's kind of associated with depression?
Ooh. That's a that's a tough one.
I'm not
I
making this
mean,
easy on you.
yeah, you are. These are some real heavy hitters. But the so you said, how do I deal with the
Negative self
lonely
beliefs and the
negative
loneliness. Yeah.
self-beliefs and the loneliness?
Yeah.
Um, so negative self-beliefs, I've always talked about how this is really probably one of the biggest triggers for any mental health disorder is just not thinking that you're good enough for something or not thinking that we're always believing that other people are perceiving you in a negative light or not thinking you're good enough. And a lot of times with social anxiety, big negative self beliefs are I'm awkward, nobody likes me, I'm
Mm,
unlikable, things like that. So those are kind of things that I have been trying to stop telling myself.
mhm.
What I do is a lot of reframing and and then thought stopping. It's just basically you and meditation helps a lot, kind of being able to observe your thoughts and make and recognizing when you're having those beliefs because a lot of times the issue with those mental health disorders is not realizing when you're having those thoughts and beliefs and it's just a recurring thing that's bringing you down. But meditation to kind of help you observe your thoughts and your negative self-beliefs and then being able to stop, observe them and kind of just let them pass
Yeah.
and then tell yourself, instead of I'm unlikable, like just positive affirmations or reframe beliefs like I am I am a light or like I bring light to those around me. I'm awkward. Everybody has awkward moments. I'm not alone. Um, and then just kind of trying to trump those perfectionist beliefs that every time you go into a social situation, it has to be perfect. You can't say anything wrong. You can't do anything wrong. You
Mm-hmm.
have to know exactly how to speak and be, or else everybody's going to hate you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just really reframing your thoughts into positive things. And then, yeah, just doing more of things that you enjoy, and that are going
Okay.
to bring you out of those kind of negative thought rabbit holes. Like, I like meditation, yoga for me, physical activity, reading, just things that I know are gonna, um, bring me out of those negative thoughts because 'cause they're gonna happen, it's inevitable, but it's good to know how to have tools and things at your disposal to bring you out of that,
Right.
um,
Do you
and
have
then
do you have by the way, do you
and
have
then
specific videos on dealing with reframing?
I do. I think one of my earlier episodes talked about I don't know if I have a YouTube video on it, but I know I have couple episodes talking about actually, loneliness and, like,
Mm-hmm.
kind of depression, and then I also have something on kind of reframing your thoughts and Is everything okay?
Yeah, that was really weird. We're back
Okay.
now. I think I hit it.
Okay.
I think I hit a button.
You hit a button? I like, thought somebody else was calling. I was like,
Oh,
"What, is somebody
I
else
know what
coming
happened.
on?"
Uh, somebody redeemed something on Twitch and it changed it changed my camera.
Question mark, question mark, question
So
mark.
Oh, okay.
sorry.
Okay. That's fine. I'm not used to this platform 100%, so, like,
I'm
if
not
I'm
always
ever
used to
like,
this
"What's going
platform
on?"
either.
That's all.
um, all
But
right.
yeah, what was the question? Did I answer it?
You did
I don't
answer it.
remember.
So, because somebody had asked in chat here, somebody
Okay.
had asked about how how do you go about doing reframing? How do you actually do it? So, um, that's why I was asking that.
Okay.
So I guess one of the last questions I
Okay.
have in respect of your time here
Mhm.
is how do you recognize
Yeah.
when it's time to take a break? And how do you know when it's okay to resume?
Well, in terms of taking a break, your body will tell you. Your mind and your body will tell you, and sometimes it's hard. A lot of us don't really haven't learned how to listen to that and interpret those emotions. So I think it's really just when I think the biggest thing is when you're tired of doing what you're doing, when you get to a point where you're like, oh, this is starting to get annoying, or this is starting, because there's going to be points where you're going to get annoyed, even if it's something that you enjoy doing. But I think you have to evaluate when, like, every time you're going to do it, is it bringing up negative feelings? Is it
Mm,
making you hate what you're doing when you used to enjoy it? Does it feel like a chore? And instead of jumping to, maybe this isn't something I like doing anymore, maybe I don't enjoy it, maybe just take a break. And that's kind of what I've been doing. There's been points where I've just gotten overwhelmed with other things going on in my life, and it makes doing this feel like a chore. So I just kind of take maybe a few days or a week and reset myself. And then I know it's, if I have an obligation, like a podcast, if I'm supposed to release it at a certain time, I tell my fans or people who listen, you know, I love you guys, but right now I just need a break and I'm going to be gone from here to here. And I feel like people are usually respectful of that. But yeah, just kind of when you get to the point where you feel like it's a chore.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then also, I mean, I think learning how to listen to your body, when you get that, like, tightness or just feeling kind of stressed out and that tension, that's kind of when you know it's time to take a little break or just relax, even if it's just, like, a 5-minute break when you're in the middle of doing something. Your body will kind of react and tell you when it's time to do something different.
Right. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Is there, since we're at 9:30, is there anything you'd like to let people know, anyone that just joined in the last few minutes, about you, or anything you'd like
Uh,
to promote?
um Say, other than the podcast, I guess I didn't really tell you guys where to find it. I know we talked about how it's on most major podcasting platforms, but I also have an Instagram and a Twitter. Instagram. I don't know if you were going to link these, but my handle is embracing_awk on Instagram and Twitter, and then my YouTube channel. I don't have a special YouTube handle yet, so I'll maybe just send you the link so you can
That
link
one is,
that
I have
below.
that one in chat.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
been rotating here. The Instagram one I didn't
Oh,
because
you don't have an Instagram,
it
right?
wasn't, well, it wasn't working. Your link wasn't
Oh.
working. Yeah, and check your link tree.
Okay. Okay, well, I will check that out and fix that. Sorry, guys. I've been I think because I changed my Instagram handle, that's what happened. So
Yeah,
I
because
need to
it
update
said
that.
not found. So yeah, I
Oh,
bet.
no, that's not
Oh,
that's no bueno.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
check your Twitter in there too, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, I will, go ahead and change those real quick so that we can get those linked. But yeah, if you wanna find it, you just can search embracing_awk and,
Yep.
yeah, otherwise, like, I'm still trying to put out the content. I drop every Tuesday and Thursday. I had an episode drop yesterday, gonna have one drop tomorrow. And yeah, I'm hoping to interview more people, um, build my fan base, and just keep making content that'll help people deal with social anxiety and introversion and other things, and maybe expand to other mental health issues one day. So
Well, I think what
yeah,
you do is incredible. It is
thank
very
you.
valuable and very timely for, everything that was going on, that people need that
Yeah,
kind of help, that kind of inspiration. So
yeah,
thank you for all that you do, and thank you for coming on here. And I'd love to have you back
yeah.
again if you have time.
Oh, of course. Yeah, and yeah, hopefully I can come longer another time and we can kind of elaborate on some other things. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Sure. All right. Have a great night, and
You
have a
too.
great day tomorrow.
Thank you. You too. Bye,
All right.
guys.